Today on Current Events from a Christian Perspective, we look at a Jeopardy clip that I would say is maybe the most famous Bible verse of all time, and surprise, none of the contestants know it. Meanwhile, in my favorite sports news, the NHL, National Hockey League, has banned pride jerseys. This is a great thing, at least for now. This is great news, and we'll look at how we got there. Then we have Twitter news, college news, and even a presidential quote, though it's probably not the president or the presidential candidate who you think it is. Anyway, we'll talk more about that soon. All this and more today. I'm Matt Odegaard, and this is Church Public. Welcome back to Church Public. Again, I'm your host, Matt Odegaard, as always, here to help you try to live out your faith in the public square in a way that makes sense and is maybe a little more challenging than it used to be. So I'm here to help you out with that. As always, if you need to hit the like button, the subscribe button, the share button, any of the buttons, that's fine. I talked to another guy yesterday who said, oh, you have a video podcast too? I do. So if you're listening on audio, hey, I love you. Thank you so much. And that's fine. And that's wonderful. If for some weird reason you want to see the things we're talking about, you want to see the clips, see the pictures, hey, check out churchpublic.com and you can see the video there. You can go to churchpublic.com, just the main page. Churchpublic.com/podcast is just the video version. You can go to YouTube. Probably this will be on YouTube. Thanks, YouTube. Love you. Though it might not. I mean, we have a history, me and YouTube. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Anyway, you can check out the video there or go to churchpublic.com or just listen to the audio. And I love that. If this is helpful, hit the subscribe button, hit the share button, and let a friend know, hey, this is how you might be able to live out your faith more as a follower of Jesus. All right, let's get to some news. This was a clip that was going around and I posted it. It got a lot of hits on socials when I posted it because people are very angry. People are very angry that I would reference the Bible. I mean, basically that's it. A lot of people said, great that, we're talking about Bible things. And a lot of people said, I don't believe in your sky daddy. So let's watch this clip from Jeopardy about, I would say, at least one of the most, maybe John 3:16 is the most famous one because they hold up at the sports games and all that. But this is one of the most famous because it is a prayer that I feel like everybody has heard in every movie all the time. But for whatever reason, none of these Jeopardy contestants had any idea what this verse was.
It's adjectives, 200.
Matthew 6:9 says, Our Father which art in heaven, this be thy name. Hallowed be thy name.
Yep, they got nothing. They don't know, Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Like, even if you don't know any Bible and you have never picked up your Bible at all, have you never heard this, even in a movie or in a Catholic part of a movie? Or it's mind-boggling to me that people don't know this verse, but apparently they don't. And I guess I can't fault them because this is the culture that we're in. Though I had a lot of people, I guess atheists, saying, hey, I don't believe in your sky daddy. I had a lot of people saying it's good that quote unquote smart people don't know this verse because that means they're not indoctrinated in the religion. It's good. Or I had people say that, hey, this country is not founded on Christianity, so why would you think that we know this? And all of that's ridiculous. So here, let's back up a second and say, in my understanding, and I could be wrong, but I believe Jeopardy, the whole point of Jeopardy is for people to grab onto, I mean, you could say useless or just general knowledge, just random facts, and you answer those questions. I mean, that's just the whole point of Jeopardy, isn't it? Isn't that the point of Jeopardy? It's things that nobody else knows and you know. So you would think like a Bible verse, the most famous Bible verse, arguably in history, might be something you would know, but I guess not, right? And I guess what that says here is that these supposedly smart people, and the smartest among us, apparently, just don't know the Bible, which means they don't know culture, which means they don't know how America was founded. They don't know that Deuteronomy is the most quoted book referenced in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. Go look that up. Check my work on that. It's right. It's more than Montesquieu. It's more than Locke. It's more than the other philosophers of the time. It is the most quoted thing, or at least the most referenced thing that ideas were founded on in the founding documents of America, not to mention British documents, Magna Carta, all these other things, Lex Rex, that whole controversy. Again, I'm not going to get into all that and all the history at this point, but the reality is the West more broadly and America specifically was founded on Christian principles. Even if, and this was pointed out to me, okay, not every member of the Continental Congress was a believer. Sure, okay, whatever. It still is the foundation of America. And the fact that these smarty pants people don't know this, I guess I would just say is troubling at the least. I'll just leave it at that. So let's talk about some wins in culture. Here's a win in culture that I saw and I like. The NHL National Hockey League bans pride jerseys for their warm-ups. I think this is really good. The National Hockey League commissioner came out and said that National Hockey League players will no longer be allowed to wear pride jerseys during warm-ups. I think this is great. Let's hear what he had to say.
Commissioner, first of all, I understand there was a decision made on the pride jerseys in warm-up today at Board of Governors.
Well, actually, I've suggested that it would be appropriate for clubs not to change their jerseys in warm-ups because it's become a distraction and taking away from the fact that all of our clubs in some form or another host nights in honor of various groups or causes, and we'd rather they continue to get the appropriate attention that they deserve and not be a distraction.
So, I mean, we'll leave it there for now, and we'll come back to a little bit more that he said, because it's a win. It's not as much as a win as I'd like, but it is a win nonetheless. So we need to go back for just a moment and remember where this began. I played this several months ago, like 5-something months ago at this point. I believe it was in January. Ivan Provorov, the NHL player from Russia, who happens to be a Russian Orthodox Christian, say that 5 times fast, he did not want to wear the jersey, and he said so. Rightly so. Let's listen to this.
Everybody, I respect everybody's choices. My choice is to stay true to myself and my religion. That's all I'm going to say.
And that should be all you have to say. If you want to stay true to your religion and not wear a pride jersey, which is another religion, which I keep telling you about. If you don't believe me, if you're just like, no, Matt, it's not a religion, go back and listen to some of my other episodes and let me show you how it is literally functioning like a religion. Not the least of which it's saying you must agree or else you're out. That's a religion. Anyway. Then the left, the media more broadly, they just went crazy, called him all the names, and even said, go back to Russia. Here's one of the clips that I pulled of the media just really not liking him at all for this.
Hockey is for everyone, ... unless you don't agree with gay rights is not the phrasing of this. You're either in this or you're not. And one last point. Nothing scares me more than any human being who says, I'm not doing this because of my religious beliefs. Because when you looked at people's lives, you normally say that publicly, you'd throw up at what you saw. You would throw up at what you saw. And I have seen that a million times in a lot of different ways. So don't give me that. With respect. Don't give me that, because no one's perfect. All right? Don't tell me, don't feed me the religious beliefs line. And all of a sudden the NHL is going to back off this. The National Hockey League today needs to find that organization $1 million and reevaluate how they support gay rights.
So a lot going on there. I don't want to get like point for point on everything that we just heard, but there's a couple things that I do want to pull out there. One is this whole religious thing. I think his point, what he was saying is, if you pull the religious card and you look at your personal life, you see that you make mistakes. I would say yes, correct. That's how Christianity works. Read Romans. The whole point of Romans is you are a terrible person. I mean, that's oversimplifying a little bit, but just go read Romans 1 and 2 and 3 and 5 and 8 and the whole thing. Just read the whole thing. Paul is very clearly saying, without Christ, you are just straight nothing. You are full of sin and you cannot escape it. That is the reality of the life that is painted for us because of who Adam was, that Adam sinned. Now we have a sin nature. That's just it. I know this world. This is hard, people. This world wants to say you're enough, you're great, you're perfect just the way you are. And that sounds amazing. The problem is it's just not true. It's just not the reality. And this news reporter actually brings up a really good point. None of us live a perfect life. Correct. That is the point of the gospel. That's why we have a perfect Savior in Jesus Christ who did not sin, even though all of us did. And he took on our sin, which is why we have a chance to be reconnected to God through faith in Christ and the resurrection. I won't go more gospel-y than that, but you can read all about that in Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Acts, Romans. Just read the New Testament. It's all in there. Anyway, So he says, oh, you can't say that you follow religion because you're a terrible person. And that's hypocrisy. I'm translating. That's what he said. Well, yeah, it's right. that's the religion of Christianity, that you can't do it on your own. Yes, I agree. But his conclusion then is, so then you can't say, well, I'm going to use my religion to say this is how I act in public because this is how I act in private because this is who my God is and I'm going to follow my God. No, that's wrong. I'm sorry. That's the wrong part here. I follow God, therefore I'm going to only do the things in following God. Like here is, I'm going to keep pointing this up. And if you're just listening, this is Daniel and Daniel's friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and everyone is bowing down to the trans idol, and they are not. I mean, this is the reality that we're in now. The world is saying you must bow down. And for Provorov, right, this news reporter is saying, hey, NHL, you cannot let a person do this. You need to be fined $1 million because you did not get along with what they told you to do. And there was another clip. I didn't pull it, but there was another group of news reporters who were saying, Provorov, if he doesn't like it, just go back to Russia. Even though there's a war there and it's probably bad, just go. Accept the pride jerseys or just go back to Russia. This is leftist tolerance. Like they say they're tolerant. This is their tolerance. You just accept everybody as they are. It's wonderful. Unicorns, rainbows, amazing. But sorry, if you don't agree or if you want to claim religion, then you need to leave the country. Then you need to leave this place straight to the gulag for you. You don't get to be a part of this society. This is what I know we just keep coming back to this journalist statement on religion, but this is what I keep saying to you. Either you accept their religion 100% or you blaspheme their God and you must be punished. You don't get to say that your religion is better or has a different morality or morality that the country actually was founded on. $1 million fine for this one guy saying he didn't want to wear the jersey. You just have to accept it. You have to affirm it. You have to affirm their sex religion and wear the jersey. You don't get to claim another religion. Your beliefs don't matter. The only thing that matters is their sex religion, and you will bow down, or you will literally be sent back to Russia, to the gulags. Maybe not that last part, but that's what they're saying. Here's the good news in this case. All because of this one man, Provorov, just this one man stood up and said, no, I'm not going along with this madness. The entire league, because of this one man, has changed its policy and banned the special Pride Night jerseys. And that's great. And I love that. Sadly, that's not actually the end of the story. And there's not too much good news because the Pride Nights will still totally go on.
So Pride Nights stay? And fans will...
absolutely.
Okay.
32 of our clubs did Pride Nights. Some do Heritage Nights. Everybody does Hockey Fights Cancer. Some do Military Nights. All of those...
We'll stop it there. You get the picture. But the reporter goes, hey, so are you canceling the Pride Nights? Oh, no. We're still going to have those, of course. We're just not going to have the jerseys at the beginning of the night. You know, we take the win for what it is and we just move on. But the bowing down to the sex cult's not going to end, but at least the jerseys will be less visible. The lesson here, just stand your ground because it's important and it does make a difference. Meanwhile, in the Twitterverse, Elon makes another big move for hate speech, but this time in a more conservative way, which is kind of exciting. So what we're talking about here is the word cis, C-I-S-C-Y-S. It's not a real word, so different people spell it differently, and I don't care. But it stands for cisgender, which basically means that you're normal and you are a man who likes a woman or a woman who likes a man. You're just a normal person. So this is a normal word. The word is not a normal word at all. The word is a made-up word for normal people because normal people didn't need a word, except for now the world is so wacky that if you're normal, they had to make up a word for you that they will force you to adopt. See how this works? You have to bow down, even if you're just a normal person. So Elon was responding to a Twitter user who was getting spammed and trolled and slammed because he said, quote, yesterday, after posting a tweet saying that I reject the word cis and don't wish to be called it, I received a slew of messages from trans activists calling me sissy and telling me that I am cis, whether or not I like it. A person named James Essie. And so Elon says, no, we're not having this. So he puts up this tweet and says, repeated targeted harassment against any account will cause the harassing account to receive at minimum temporary suspension. The words cis or cisgender are considered slurs on this platform. That's fantastic. I love this. It's wonderful news. Journalist and cultural commentator, according to Fox News, Genevieve Gluck pointed out the words, quote, cisgender was coined by German sexologist Volkmar Segush, who believed, quote, can I even read this? I'm going to read this. Here's the thing, right? I have to tell you sometimes where things come from so that we understand what we're really talking about. So this word cisgender, it's a made up word, but the person who made up that word is Volkmar Segush. And this person said, quote, the sensuality that spontaneously unfolds between a child and an adult is something wonderful, and there's nothing wrong with pedophilia, end quote. Yeah, that's the lovely person who coined the term cisgender. So that's wonderful. Musk went on to say, quote, yep, the contemptible creep that has manufactured the term cis has serious problems. Ignore him, end quote. There are things that I do not agree with Elon Musk on, but man, that is pretty good right there. Because they want you, it's not even want. They will make you do this. You have to follow their religion or else you are out. And it's amazing to see, again, we'll see how far this goes, but we'll take the win. It's amazing to see that Elon is pushing back and saying, no, this is not how free speech works. This is not how the world works. You can't make me do something or make me into something that I don't want to be, right? That's the point here. You say in this sex cult that I must be a cisgendered person. But that's not real. That's the problem with all of this, right? It's not a real thing. And so you say, I have to do this, but the reality is, no, I don't. I don't have to be what you tell me I need to be. I only have to be what God tells me I am. And that's what I'm going to continue to push towards, because I'm just going to say, God is the boss of me, not you. So meanwhile, back in college, a girl gets a bad grade for using the term, quote, biological woman, because again, that's the world that we live in now. So you can't say biological woman because apparently that's bad. So a girl posts on TikTok about her experience with a professor who gave her a 0 for saying that there were biological women, that biological women exist. I'll let the girl speak for herself here.
I wrote on a project proposal in my class because I used the term biological women, which is apparently not allowed anymore. She even said it was a good project proposal, but I got a 0 because I used this term and it's exclusionary and not allowed anymore, so. And I 100% know that this is like the most biased grade ever because my project is about transgenders competing in biological women's sports. How am I supposed to do my final project if I can't use the word biological women? But that's what my project is about.
Right? I mean, she's got a fair point there. And she's talking about transgender women. I can't keep up with all this gymnastics, but anyway, so it's men who want to dress like women competing in women's sports, right? That's the translation of where we are. And this young lady wrote a paper that said, hey, biological women shouldn't have to deal with this. And the professor said, you can't say that, so you get a 0, right? This is, again, what we're talking about in all of our things today is speech. You cannot say true things if they disagree with whatever thing this new religion tells you to. The religion will make you, through bad grades, through Twitter, through all of these things, they'll say, no, you have to say this. Now, if you listen to that, you did not hear the name of the professor, you did not hear the name of the school, and I think that's great. This particular student was frustrated with it, but didn't out the teacher or the university. However, the teacher outed the university. So what the teacher did was post and do a news article with the Cincinnati Enquirer. And this is the College Fix reporting. The adjunct who failed student for using term, quote, biological woman confirms the story and plays the victim. So the adjunct professor herself said that it's true, and that's what happened. Melanie Rose Nipper is her name, an adjunct professor in the University of Cincinnati Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies Department, confirmed Krolschi's sequence of events, but added, quote, her review of the paper idea and her language was a routine element of her duties as a professor. In other words, when a student uses an outdated terminology, I'm going to pause there for a moment from this quote and say, the outdated terminology is that biological women exist. Okay, let's keep going through this quote and then we'll talk about more. Nipper says, quote, she feels it necessary to correct those mistakes, end quote. She believes that that classrooms, quote, should be places for debate and discussion, but that ends when you are intentionally or unintentionally participating in systematic harm of some kind. Such harm includes transphobia and white supremacy. So here we are. By saying biological woman, you are both transphobic and a white supremacist. By saying that a woman exists, period. Just as a side note, everybody, this is apparently the college experience. And that was the point. I think this young lady, this young college student, I think she got something like 3 million views on this on TikTok. It blew up. And that's my point here. And what I want to point out to you all. This is happening in colleges across America. This is Cincinnati. It's not California. It's not New York. It's not Oregon. This is Cincinnati, Ohio. This is happening in university schools across America in some of these women's studies, sociology, all these other classrooms. I've got a couple of students in college classes right now, and I can tell you this is happening in colleges across America. So are you allowed to say true things? And the answer is no. Even the student herself, she was asked about this diversity of thought. And she said, are you allowed to have other opinions? And she said, quote, no, definitely not. If you have dissenting views or opinions, you're probably going to have a rough grade. You're probably going to have a rough time in that class. She said, and that's just because all these teachers have a political agenda that they're trying to push on their students, end quote. Right. That's the reality here. These professors, these teachers are pushing this, and they are saying this is the only way. The good news here is this student pushed back. And we're seeing more pushback, and we're seeing students say, I don't like this. I want to say true things. And we're seeing more and more come out of this. Speaking of political agenda and speaking of transgender swimmers, here's a clip I found of Leah Thomas. And I actually agree with Leah Thomas here. I know. But we need to take a listen because Leah Thomas actually has a great point here. And I think we should take a listen and then discuss what's going on.
The NCAA has said that they support trans athletes. They also haven't taken action against states that have banned trans athletes. Leah, can two truths exist at once?
I think it's very difficult for an organization to say, we support trans people, we support trans inclusion, and then not do anything to sort of do that, to anything to protect trans athletes, to ensure they're treated fairly. It sort of gets to this broader idea that I've encountered a lot, where people will say, oh, like, Leah, I respect you and your identity as a woman, but I just don't think it's fair for you to play in the women's category. And you can't have that sort of halfway acceptance of trans women and of trans people more broadly, because when you think like that, you're not really thinking of trans women as women, you're thinking of them as this other category that we have to find something to do with when...
Exactly. I mean, I hate to say it, I agree, but I agree. Now, I don't agree with the whole category that Leah Thomas is talking about, but the premise is right here. And it's interesting that even the interviewer says, can two truths exist at the same time? And the answer, of course, is no. No, they cannot. Two truths cannot exist at the same time. They just can't. So Thomas is correct here. There is no halfway. Either you go all the way or you don't go at all. And in a sense, that's the right perspective. Like, does this category of human exist where a man can literally, biologically, realistically change into a woman? And if your organization says yes, then you have to afford them every right that is due a man or a woman. You don't get to split the hairs and say, well, it does, but it also doesn't. And that's true. And we're seeing that in some cases where some organizations just go all the way and all in. But a lot of organizations are saying, well, no, we want to have it both ways. The assertion here is correct. Like, either it is all the way true, or I'm going to go on the other side and say it's all the way not true. It is not true that this is possible. And therefore, it doesn't make sense that you're asserting it at all. And that's what's really difficult. And this is the part where, unfortunately, I see it's difficult for some conservatives too. And that's the next clip that we're going to look at. And I'm not going to talk much about presidential things because we'll have a lot of time to do that as the days go on and we get closer to it. We'll probably talk about it some. But I did see this clip and I wanted to talk about it because it illustrates this point really well. Even on the conservative side, and I'm not going to say on the Christian side, well, maybe on the Christian side, there are Christians who are just confused. And maybe that's why I'm doing what I'm doing here, trying to help you be less confused, because it's easy to get sucked into this. And when we hear this person talk, I think you'll see why. But you have to realize, like, is this ideology true totally or not at all? There is no middle. There can only be totally or not at all. Either this is 100% true or it's 100% not true. There's not a 50% true category. And that's what Thomas was saying. Am I this, an actual woman, or am I not? Is there this other category? And of course, you know where I'm going to come down on that. But the reality is either there is something that's true or there's something that's not true. And we're seeing this more and more. And we're seeing it because reality will win. Truth will win. There is no way to lie forever. You just can't. And as we look into the gospel, we look into the teleology, like the end things, the eschaton, when the God comes back and Jesus comes back and that whole thing. We know that Jesus eventually wins, but we also know even now that true is true. You can argue about it, you can yell about it, you can push people off your platforms, you can silence their voices, but true is just still true. So let's look at this presidential front. I think this is an interesting story. Again, I'm making no presidential claim in any way, whatever, but this happens to be a person who is running for the office of the president. And we're not going to spend a ton of time on this in terms of politics, but I saw a clip from Mike Pence. And I mean, I'm not going to make any opinion on him personally, but I think it just serves discussion in line of our topics of today, because we're talking about the same thing. And he is coming at it from a quote unquote conservative perspective and a quote unquote Christian perspective. But unfortunately, he gets something very wrong in this clip. And so we're going to talk about it. Let's take a listen here.
I strongly support efforts in my home state of Indiana and around the country to prohibit gender transition, chemical or surgical treatment for children under the age of 18. I'm libertarian enough to say if you're an adult, you live while you live. I may not agree with decisions you make, but we'll love you and love our neighbor as ourselves, as my faith requires, right? But live and let live. But for our kids, absolutely not. We've got to take a strong stand.
Okay, so you heard a couple of things there, and I want to commend him on certain things. Sure, he said, love your neighbor. He said, we need to protect our kids. I applaud that. That's fantastic. We do need to protect our kids. I love that he's taking what he says is a strong stand against that, a strong stand against surgical and medical procedures for kids under 18. I love that. Where it goes off the rails for us as Christians, and you have to understand this, is either something is wrong or it is right. You can't have this category, even as Leah Thomas pointed out, that is, it's sort of right sometimes, but sort of wrong sometimes. Which is it? It can't be both. So Pence goes on to say, well, if you're an adult, it's live and let live. I'm libertarian. You just make your own decisions and nothing affects anybody else and it's fine. And that's what my religion says, because my religion says love your neighbor. No. I cannot say this strongly enough. Either cutting off your body parts and sterilizing people is wrong or it is not. That's the bottom line. That is the period there. You can't have both things. If you say it's okay, or you say it's good, or you say it doesn't matter if you do it or not, then why is it okay for adults and not okay for kids? Why? Sure, you say they can't consent. Okay, whatever. But it's either wrong or it's not wrong. If it's not wrong, everybody should be able to do it at any age and it shouldn't matter. If it is wrong, then no one should be able to do it at any age because it does matter. Some things are just wrong. Great job protecting our kids. I commend you, but I'm sad that Pence does not understand the actual issue and the actual thing that is going on here. And maybe he does. Maybe he's just being a politician, but I would love to see a stronger push to actual right living. And that's the problem with this idea that we've been snowed on. We've been faked out about this love your neighbor. Does love your neighbor mean you do whatever the person is telling you they want, Or does love your neighbor mean doing the right thing because it's the right thing? And those are mutually exclusive. Think of it in parenting terms. I've given this example before. But if your child comes to you and says, hey, I love having waffles, or I love having ice cream. That's a better example. I love having ice cream all of the time. So give me ice cream all of the time. And you say, well, I love you and I love you as myself. So I'm going to give you whatever you want and give you only ice cream all of the time. Is that a loving thing to do? Is that the right thing to do? That's what they want. So I should just give them what they want because that's what we're talking about here. An adult wants this. So just do whatever you want because I'm libertarian and live and let live. That's just what we do. No, of course not. You can say, yes, you're free to make whatever choice you want, but that choice has consequences. It may have legal consequences. It may have physical consequences. It may have relational consequences, but your choice has consequences. And we need to be honest about what those consequences are. Sterilization, messing with hormones. There are so many post-transition stories right now that are coming out that are just tragic. But we just say, well, you just want to do it, so do it. Like, do whatever you want. Do whatever procedure you want. It's fine. You be you. Live your truth. Love is love. No, as Christians, we have to say no. We have to say the true thing. We have to say, well, love is not love. Love is true. God is true. God is love. Love is not love. Lying is certainly not love. We can't lie to people and say, well, yeah, do whatever you want. There's no consequences for any part of living. Of course not. That's not the reality. And this gets back to truth. It gets back to free speech. You and I can be banned from social media if we don't lie and use the biologically incorrect pronouns. Like I said, I may or may not, I hope that the people that are watching over this and the algorithms don't hear some of the words that I say, because if they do, this probably won't make it onto any of the social medias. But banning false things and wrong things is not the same as banning good and true things, right? Here's the bottom line. This is where you say, well, you say you should use pronouns and I say you shouldn't lie. Those are the same things. You're just banning one thing or another. No, they're different. They're different categories. We're making category errors. Here's the bottom line of free speech. People like Pence want to be libertarian. He says such, or even liberal with free speech. They will say something like, and I may have even said this earlier in my life because I didn't understand fully. We've heard things like more speech is better. More free speech is better. If you just have more free speech, then the best speech will win and then we'll get better. So if you have bad speech or hate speech or whatever, you flood that with more speech and then more speech is better. The left says no speech. We only want our speech, which also, of course, is bad. But the right sometimes says, well, just have more speech, all the speech, just let all the speech through. But that's not it. And that's not the Christian perspective. It's not even the conservative perspective. It's not ever been true. Think of it in these terms. If you have a lie, and then you add a bunch of more lies to it, you still have a pile of lies and still no truth. The answer to bad speech, wrong speech, untrue speech is not more speech. The answer is right speech, true speech. The answer to untrue speech is true speech. The answer lies in the truth every single time. The problem on social media, the problem in the media, the problem in politics, the problem on television, the problem in the universities, the problem in high schools and elementary schools, and pretty much everywhere else. The problem is you're not allowed to say true things anymore. Remember that kid? He had a t-shirt that said there are only two genders, and the administrators, the teachers said, you can't wear that here because that's offensive. It doesn't matter if it's true. It is functionally, biologically, realistically true. It's a true statement. He was not allowed to wear that true statement on his shirt because the powers that be, the religion of this land, said, no, you're forced to lie. You must lie. And Christian, you've got to know that's bad. It's 9th commandment bad. It's 9 out of the 10 commandments. Don't lie. We all should know this, but we have lulled into this idea where loving your neighbor is lying to them to make them feel better. I'm sorry. No, that's just not true. Loving is not lying. We have to find the balance of loving people and telling the truth. Of course, you don't want to crush people with condemnation. Of course, that's not what I'm saying, but lying is not good either. That's the grace part, grace and truth. The truth part is saying true things, even when it has a cost. And that is going to become more and more difficult, believer, as we go through life, because we know this culture is against us and they will not allow the truth in more and more contexts, in more and more places. As we go forward, you're going to see, I hate to be a bearer of bad news, But you're going to see this culture will not allow you to say true things. And we're seeing it. And I'm bringing these stories to give you examples to understand that you're going to have to find that courage. And the good news is the courage is not, read Ephesians 6, the courage does not actually come from you. The courage comes from the Lord, the Spirit of God, who is in you, believer. That's the good news. But we're going to have to get that courage from God and go out and say true things, even when this culture gives us penalty for it. We're going to have to figure out how to do this because lies are not loving. Jesus told us himself that you need to know the truth because the truth will set you free. That's what Jesus tells us. And the interesting thing about that, right, that verse right before he says that, you have to hold to my teaching if you're really my disciples. I know there's people who are saying, well, you just need to love. Just love more because love is great and love covers all. Love conquers all. Just love. Jesus says, hey, I have teachings, which you can read. They're not a mystery. They're in the scriptures. And then Paul tells us how to apply them through basically the rest of the book. There's a lot of other writers too there, John and Peter and James, but it's not a mystery what to do. But Jesus says, if you're my disciple, you actually have to do what I say to do. Yes, it's loving, but how do you love? Okay, I'll tell you. That's what Jesus says because John 14:6, Jesus is the truth, the way, the truth, and the life. Jesus is the truth. He is the one that we have to base this whole foundation on, and that's the only way that we're going to get anywhere in this world. And the world to come, by the way, is by following Jesus and loving him and leaning on him. That's the only thing. I hope that you do that with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength for Church Public. As always, I'm Matt Odegaard, and I hope that you will keep the faith.